Okay, my friends, as you know, I look for the structure in things. I am a material scientist. This is supposedly the second largest diamond ever discovered. Well, I look at this, and I look at this. See what you think. Look at them carefully. All right, you see the little bands? Band, a band, a band, a band, and then there's like coming this way. You see this one here? Same thing here. All those little tiny slats inside of a tube. That's called rope muscle. Now, I can't validate that this is the one that they're talking about, the second largest ever found. But I can tell you what, that is blood. And that is blood. And I'm almost certain this is a heart as well. But I only have this one shot. But you have the red, you got the yellow, and you got the black. Now in between, there's just a big bag of blood, which leaks out. It drains out in the conditions of the terrible flood that there was, and it was boiling hot water, they say. Every place on Earth said the same thing. And even the big universities now, Harvard and a bunch of them are saying, yes, the oceans did boil. And that's why only the tubes are left, where the tubes came in. All the rest of the biological material was boiled out to a point where there was just like a skeleton left. There's just a raw collagen skeleton. And in started to move the carbon. And it started to form stability with each other because that's just their nature. They have four and they want to bond with four, so they just keep building like building blocks. And that's why it's got a lot of, well, right here, you see how shiny that is? The reason it's got all those little things is those are facets. And they make their own little facets. Can you see that? This is biology. Of that there is no question. And that right there is can't see it, can you? Right there. That's where there was some kind of a bloody attachment. But it has to be in the right conditions, in the right temperature, the right pressure, the right starting material, the right flow of stuff, the right things that are in that particular water, and somehow there was a lot of carbon. Now, I would say this was done maybe because of carbon dioxide from the lung. And it was just forcing carbon dioxide into here, which is the carbon, and the dioxide is pretty mobile. The carbon would start to attach, and I have a lung here that has crystals forming. I don't think they're diamonds, but there's crystals forming in here. I have to show you with the microscope, but they're in here. Very small ones, but if it would grow. That's from, I believe that's a heart. I believe it's exactly like this. All right, mine is a little more preserved, but you see how that strap is coming down here? That's the same thing. Everything that I'm showing you is in this one. You see that there? That's this kind of stuff right here. And right next to it is the strap. Same, right there. And then the strap, you see it? Kind of hard to miss. And this stuff is really tough and grippy, and I'm pretty sure it's part of what I would call pleura of the lung, which is a thick coating, and it's just been pushed back like this. As I have a lung here, it's the same situation. Normally that I think would be nice and clean all the way around, a layer, but I don't know that for a fact. But I can tell you what, you can see right down at right there, that's where the blood is, right behind her. I would have suspect there would have been something there. But this, you see that strap of muscle? They wrap around in a loop underneath there. It's just amazing. You see the strap coming over? They just twist. Anyway, that's a heart. As far as I'm concerned, I would say that's a heart. All right, you see that right there? That's a heart muscle bundle. That comes this way. It's sheared off here. But at one time, it would have continued on to wrap around a muscle. These are sheared off here, it looks like to me. Now you can see, you see all the little fibers coming down? That's what's inside these bundles of muscle. They wrap around and they're like little bands, just like that. And then the little bands are made up of bazillions of sarcomeres, which are muscle fibers that go like this. If you could see down into there, you would see those little tiny fibers there can go like this. And there's so many of them in these bundles, when you get long distance, they can pull like that. Now you see that right there? I don't know what it is, a vein or an artery. I would say that's a vein. And I would say that's actually right there could very well be the valve. Because they have valves. That's the beauty. Well, that's not a beauty. It's just a fact. They don't run out their blood like the red does. And I think this is the red side. And it's probably like a little cavity there. Now, you can see these are the fibers of the heart. You see? And as far as I'm concerned, we got our red, we got our black, whatever that is. And you can see the muscle fibers are wrapping around together. And here's another one comes down this way. And there's a broken off bundle. And they break straight down because they are made out of the blocks. And the blocks can shear when they're turned into stone. They no longer have that flexibility. They just snap right off. That's why you see them all broken flat like that and nobody can understand it. It's because of the sheerness of the inflexibility of muscle. All right, pay attention to this. These are muscle bundles. All right, inside the bundles there's more and more and more and more bundles. Now, you see these little edges here? These are I think they call them Z bands, and they pull in to make your muscle contract and relax. Now, when you're alive, there's fluid here, they're soft, they're subtle, they move, they can do all that kind of stuff because they're alive and they're soft. When these things die, and they start to turn to stone, they are not flexible anymore. And if you just make any kind of a movement like that, you fracture on these very weak lines. Because during the boiling and soaking process, these areas right here became extremely weak, and a lot of them just completely voided. Some stayed, but a lot of them just voided, and you had the blocks just laying there. And this is actually just muscle. All right, this is that gigantic diamond. I say that is the same as that. I believe that's the aorta. Now, you see these little bump, the bump, the bump, the bump coming down? I believe that's the same as this little bump, the bump, the bump, the bump coming down from my aorta. This is a heart. And there's some blood coming out of here right there. You see the red? That's the ventricle wall. this is like the pleura that wraps around the heart, that it gives it really stretchy, gooey stuff. And it looks to me like it's been eroded from some of the areas. This and the whole thing is gone. All of this stuff is gone. But there's still blood in here, and I can show you the blood. Now, this is a quartz heart. Quartz is basically the same as diamond on a periodic chart, only it's one bump up. So, whoops. Carbon's down here. Silicon is right there. Silicon uses oxygen to bond, silicon dioxide. Carbon goes carbon-carbon bonding. That's why diamonds are so hard, because they're bonded to each other. Now, I'm going to show some of the detail of this in the microscope, and we'll get it a little wet, but that is basically a heart. It's the same as this now. So they're going to put this on auction. I don't know what they're going to try to get for it, but it's supposed to be the second biggest one ever found. Well, this is basically looks like about the same size. And I tell you what, I do mine for half price. Whatever they get for that, I'll sell mine for half. How's that? Free shipping too. All right, that's my quartz heart. And that is where the blood is. And I have it up here in the microscope. And that is a valve. I'm not sure which valve it is, but it's some kind of a valve, and these cuts in the, let it go one way or the other. I'm not sure which, and it's, you know, it's a little scruffed up, but it's pretty obvious that that's where there was some serious amount of blood moving through there. All right, so there's that one. Now let's see if we can find anything else of interest. Okay, very sure that is a tubing of some sort. Whether it's a valve or not, I don't know. You see the circular spot I'm talking about? And that's again this quartz heart. All right, I think that right there is another heart valve. This circular spot. They're big. These things are big, and they only let the blood come one direction and can't go back the other direction. That's could be some. You know, I mean, there's so much biology going on here. There's so many holes in a heart. It's just amazing the number of little blood vessels and all that. Whatever that is there. Look at this. Look at that. That's the banding of the heart. That's a band that wraps around the heart. Normally they snap apart on that banding, I think. Well, I know they snap apart on banding. Whether that one is it or not, I don't know. And there's a little bulbous spot on the heart. Alright, so here's my quartz heart. If you see down here, you see the bumps, bump, 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 and then the investment is right there. You see how that whole thing like comes down and latches to here? It's obviously part of the, I think that's the aorta. I'm not sure which valve it is, but, and then of course you got your red blood over here. You see how cool that is? Bump, 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 and then the whole thing latches at the bottom here, that tongue. It's like a separate little piece that looks like it holds onto the aorta or something as an anchor. I don't know. But my claim is that that's the same as the aorta I was showing you, and these bumps, whatever they were, are the same as these. Bump, 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 bump. Now, this has all kinds of fibers in it, and I looked at it carefully, and there's no question they're muscle fibers. And that's what hearts are. They're just one big ball of muscle, primarily, fed with a ton of blood. And then they just squirt blood in and out. They just. That's what a heart has to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that little piece right here, I'd like to see that better, but I think that's the same as this piece right here. Hanging off mine. Anyway, that's a heart. Of that, I have no doubt whatsoever. And like I said, 50% off. Okay, shocker du jour. Pay attention to this right here. Right where my finger is. You see what that looks like up close? You see it's sort of fabric, like stringy looking stuff. And it breaks off right there. Well, I have my heart in the microscope right now. And we're going to look at the same stuff. There it is right there. That's basically the same stuff as we're looking at in that diamond one. You see it? It's this fabricy looking, stringy looking stuff that hooks up to an anchor, because this is like tendonish connective tissue. And they will have the same thing in theirs, in their heart. Now, they're also going to have red and black veins and arteries, but very, very limited because of the pressure that this diamonds are under extreme amounts of pressure. So basically all that's left is the, well, I'll show you what's left. All right, this is outrageous. This is the only place that I can find this fibery stuff, is right up near where the aorta is, and it separates between here to go up to the plumbing, and down here is where the buckets of blood are. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to see any of that wispy looking stuff inside of this diamond or not. Okay, I'm pretty sure that this is heart muscle. Now, I believe that is vein blood, the black, and that is red. I believe it's red. I'd like to see it, but I think they're calling this a pink diamond. Now, these little spots here are also areas where there was blood. This is an artery, I mean a vein, I'm pretty certain, and this is artery area. This tube, I'd like to see what that does, to be honest with you. But this is all biology as far as I'm concerned. Now, what about the muscle? We should be able to see the muscle. We can. And here it is right here. Let me back off a little bit. You see all these little stripes? Those are muscle sarcomeres. They're all over the place. And this bundle here is, they have bundles and then they have little sarcomeres within the bundles. So if you look down, you would see sarcomeres. If you look this way, you see the bundle. All right, and here they are right here. A heart is just nothing but a big ball of muscle, basically. And that's what you're seeing here, and that's from that diamond. So it's not flawless. There's going to be areas which will be flawless. As a matter of fact, hold on. I have a diamond here. Hold on a second. All right, this I'm almost certain is a diamond. All of these little shiny little facets are from a diamond, but this is biological. So is that. That right there is from a heart. This, I think, could be from a tip of a finger or something. But it depends on the conditions it was in. It doesn't have to be always a heart. It doesn't have to be anything. But I'm going to show you this in a microscope, and I'm pretty sure that that is diamond material. Now, there's going to be spots like that. You see that spot right there? You might be able to get a little tiny diamond out of that. But other than that, it's just scrap. It's, you know, these are not uncommon. But there is every here and there's a little clearer place that doesn't have as many inclusions. But anyway, I'm going to put it in a microscope, show you. And there's blood inside it. That's blood. It's not just dirt. All right, you see all these lines, these crevices and so forth? Well, mine has the same thing, only I still have some blood in mine. This was under, it looks like a little better pressure, but you can obviously see the bundles. Now, I got mine in the microscope, and this is, I believe this is diamond. You can't scratch it. It doesn't scratch. It's hard. It's very, very hard. Now, you see every now and then you see the difference? It's crazy. Then a ball happens to show up here with something. This is quite obviously biological. It's an artery, I believe. But you see how shiny these little spots are? That's the flash of a diamond. What it was when it started out, I'm not sure. Like I said, you might be able to nibble off a little tiny piece of something here or there. This is about the best, clearest spot there is. And that's some kind of, like a artery hole or something. Certainly is biology. There's no question in my mind whatsoever. That's from biology. And it all depends on where it was. And that one there had to be in such a condition that was completely flushed with everything that was inside of it, every single thing that was in there. And all that was left was the fabric. And then, for some reason, it was so heavily infused with carbon that they just flocculated into there and took over all of the biological material for some reason and did nucleophilic substitution and invasion. Nucleo means in the nucleus. It changed everything into carbon. It just invaded. Nucleophilic substitution and invasion. Just look it up. And it happened after they boiled, and everything was boiled out of them, and they were ready to accept stuff. And the carbon took over and replaced everything, but it just doesn't seem to happen with the blood the same way. And we can see these kind of things. They're there, and I can see these bundles that are the muscle fibers. Anybody that knows and understands muscle will see that and understand what it is. It's muscle bundles. And the same thing when they came back from Bennu, they have muscle bundles in the Bennu, and sarcomeres and muscle bundles. And Bennu was a heart also. All right, there's that diamond. I'm telling you, that thing is incredibly sparkly. That is bone dry. It's got some flash to it. And again, it's some kind of biology. What it's from, I don't know. But I would say, I don't know. could be a fingertip. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is the same diamond. And you can see the black, you can see the yellow, and you can see the red. And these are probably something to do with where the valves are. But that's the inclusions that are in there. It's a diamond, yes, but it originally was a heart. You see how twisted up and tangled all these fibers are? That's exactly what you see in this heart. That's a bundle. This is a bundle. That's a bundle. This is a bundle. That's a bundle. There's a bundle. There's a bundle. They're just weaving in and out in this way and that way. It seems to be there's no order to them, but there certainly is. But we don't know what it is. We know what it is now. It's a diamond. And it just happens to be that it was under this specific extreme pressure. And it was, like I say, it was completely voided, and then it took on the carbon. Now why? I'm not sure. But that is the structure of a heart, and that's what I just showed you, was all that fibers all torn up. And this is the way it works, and these are the valves that are at the top. Once the plumbing comes off, and the plumbing comes right off. It's not unknown, and it is right here. I just showed you when the plumbing comes off, you have this, which is psyche. All right, that's the plumbing that was on top. Bloop, pops right off because of iron banding. There's the two states of oxygen in the blood, and they just pop apart. And again, that was psyche. Benu's right here. Same thing. This is the plumbing up here. Pops right off. They landed, brought the stuff back, and it's heart sarcomeres. I think I've shown you that. I've been showing this for 2 years now. They refuse to engage. They're heart sarcomeres looking at them this way. All right, cut this way. This is cut this way. All right, this is cut this way, and we're looking down at the sarcomeres here. Well, cut this way, which it is here, we're looking at the ropes. So those ropes are around these sarcomeres going out that direction, and they pull in and out this way. But when we look at it in the muscle banding itself, it's in a rope. So the rope pulls in and out. So we're seeing it from both directions. It doesn't get any better than this. We're seeing this white stuff over the top and underneath the sarcomeres, which are these, the muscle. And this is not unknown. They know this. They know that there's the RNA, the DNA, the amino acids, uracil. There's nothing here that isn't biology, and it is anatomically exact. Identical. And all of this was a surprise. The phosphate surprise, we never expected that. Well, they didn't expect it was the heart, and they cannot deal with the reality now. It's hard to believe.